What if everything you thought you knew about the relationship between Canada and the United States was starting to break apart? What if the strongest alliance in North America is quietly turning into a battlefield, not with weapons, not with soldiers, but with something far more powerful: money, trade, control? Because right now, Mark Carney has sent a message that no one in Washington can ignore. Canada will not be controlled, and this could be the beginning of something much bigger than anyone expected. For decades, the relationship between Canada and United States has been described as unbreakable. Two neighbors, two partners, two economies, deeply connected. Every single day, billions of dollars flow across their borders. Factories in Canada depend on American parts. American companies depend on Canadian resources. Energy, cars, metals, agriculture, everything is connected. On the surface, it looks perfect, but beneath that surface, there has always been a quiet imbalance, because one country is a global superpower, and the other has had to adapt. Power, in global economics, is rarely obvious. It doesn't always show itself through force. Sometimes it shows up through decisions, tariffs, regulations, trade restrictions, and recently, the United States made a series of moves that changed everything. Tariffs targeting steel, aluminum, manufacturing sectors. These weren't random. They were strategic, because these industries are critical to Canada's economy. And when those tariffs hit, it wasn't just economics, it was pressure. For a long time, Canada responded carefully, diplomatically, quietly, but then came the moment that shifted everything. A statement, clear, direct, unfiltered, from Mark Carney. That sentence may sound simple, but in international politics, it carries weight. It signals resistance. It signals independence. And most importantly, it signals a change in mindset. At the center of this growing tension lies one critical structure: USMCA. This agreement defines how trade flows between Canada, the United States, Mexico. For years, it created stability, predictability, growth. But now, it's being tested, because agreements like this only work when all sides feel they are benefiting. And right now, that balance is being questioned. There's a truth that rarely gets discussed openly. Canada has depended heavily on the United States for exports. That perception is changing, not through noise, not through headlines alone, but through actions, decisions, and a growing desire for independence. This is not the end of the story. In many ways, it's just the beginning. Behind closed doors, far away from cameras, far away from headlines, something very different is happening. Negotiators from Canada and United States are sitting across from each other. Every word matters. Every pause matters. Because these are not just discussions. They are power moves. The United States is pushing for stronger terms, more control, better access. Canada is pushing back, not aggressively, but firmly. Because this time, the goal is not just to agree. The goal is to rebalance the relationship. There is one industry that shows the tension clearly. It's the auto industry. Cars built in Canada often rely on parts from the United States, and American companies rely on Canadian assembly lines. It's a perfect example of economic integration. But when tariffs enter the equation, everything changes. Costs go up. Production slows down. Decisions become political. Factories start asking, should we move? Should we shift production? Should we reduce risk? And once those questions start, they don't stop easily. Now let's talk about something even more important: energy. Canada is one of the largest energy suppliers to the United States. Oil, natural gas, electricity. This gives Canada something powerful: backhand index pointing right leverage. Because while trade can be replaced, energy dependence is much harder to change quickly. And in times of tension, energy becomes more than just a resource. It becomes a tool, a strategic advantage. But what about the people? Because behind every policy, behind every agreement, there are millions of lives affected. In Canada, some people support the push for independence. They see it as strength. Others worry. Backhand index pointing right, what if jobs are lost? Backhand index pointing right, what if the economy slows down? In the United States, some see Canada's move as unnecessary. Others see it as a challenge. And public opinion can shape political decisions more than anything else. The media plays a huge role in all of this. Different headlines, different angles, different stories. Some describe it as backhand index pointing right, a growing economic conflict. Others call it backhand index pointing right, a normal trade disagreement. But the truth is usually somewhere in between. And that's where your content becomes powerful. Because people are not just looking for news. They're looking for understanding. Let's go deeper. This is not just about economics. It's about psychology. For years, the balance of power has been clear. The United States leads. Others follow. But when a country like Canada starts to resist, It changes the dynamic because power is not just about size. It's about perception, and perception can shift faster than reality. Let's imagine a scenario. What if negotiations fail? What if both sides refuse to compromise? We could see more tariffs, trade restrictions, supply chain disruptions. Companies might relocate, investments might slow down, markets might react. And suddenly, what started as a disagreement becomes a real economic conflict. Now think bigger, much bigger. Because when two major economies like Canada and United States face tension, the world pays attention. Countries in Europe, Asia, emerging markets, they all watch and they all prepare because global trade is like a web. Touch one part and everything moves. Here's something most people miss. This is not about today. It's about the next 10, 20, even 50 years. Canada is not just reacting to current policies. It's thinking long-term, building resilience, creating alternatives. Because in global economics, the countries that survive are not the strongest. They are the most adaptable. Could this lead to new alliances? Possibly. If Canada reduces dependence on the US, it may strengthen ties with Europe, Asia, other global partners, and that changes the global balance. Because alliances are not permanent. They evolve. So now we reach a critical point. Everything is in motion. Nothing is fully decided. But the direction is becoming clearer. Canada wants more control. The United States wants to maintain influence. And between those two goals, there is tension. Now the question is this the start of a new economic era? Or just another chapter in a long relationship? Tell me what you think. And if you want more deep, powerful content like this, subscribe. Because what happens next might change everything.